It's coming from the deep, dark recesses of the mind of Mel Brooks.
If you're blue and you don't know where to go to, why don't you go where fashion sits? Putting on the Ritz. Different types who wear a day coat, pants with stripes and cutaway coat, perfect fits. Putting on the Ritz. Dressed up like $1 million trooper, trying hard to look like Gary Cooper. Come, let's mix where Rockefellers walk with sticks or umbrellas in their midst. Putting on the Ritz.
Young Frankenstein!
Welcome back to the SuperCaZt, everybody. I'm your host, the man who put the super in SuperCaZt, Super Foch, and I'm usually joined by SteveZ, but I think he's being replaced by...
Now it's pronounced StevZ.
It is StevZ, everybody. No, we were kidding. It is my buddy SteveZ, and if you didn't already know, we are reviewing one of the funniest films of all time by one of the funniest directors of all time, the awesomely great Mel Brooks. And this is, of course, Young Frankenstein. Man, this is a movie that I know you and I have seen at least probably 50, 60 times between us, and yet it never ceases to be funny. Like, it's just, it's a brilliant cast. It's a crazy story. Like, how they came up with this is just kind of interesting, but it's just, it's a great film.
Definitely. It's like you said, it's one I've seen so many times. Like, I'm pretty sure I've got every single word of this film memorized.
Right.
I've never sat down and tried to say the whole thing, but I'm pretty sure I can do whole scenes and everything. And that's... Right. A lot of his films are like that, but this is the one that I've discovered the first, and I think, and I'm going to declare it right here, this is the best Mel Brooks film, in my opinion. And I'm going to stand by that. I'm going to try to defend it this episode.
You'll get no from me, buddy.
Yeah, and I guess before we get into that, I guess my initial thoughts of how did I get to this thing? So
yeah, I've
said it on the show before, but... This movie, I think I probably watched it when I was like 3 or 4, and that's way too young, and I didn't get any of the jokes.
Yeah.
But I still liked it. I don't know why. Yeah. I remember I was at this video store that it doesn't exist obviously anymore, but it didn't even exist like probably 2 years after I was there. But I remember seeing this cover of this film, and I'm like, this is awesome. I don't know what this is. I took it to my mom, and I'm like, hey, can we watch this? And she's like, yeah, that's a great movie. And I watched it, and I think I only laughed at the one part where they said something about playing with the food, and he plays with the food. He's like, oh, I've touched it. Are you happy? And I thought that was hilarious. And everything else I just kind of forgot. But I did watch it again a few years later when I was a little bit older, and yet again, most of the jokes went over my head. But that girl flying through the air with a seesaw.
Sit down.
Really cracked me up. And by that point I had seen Frankenstein, so I understood what they were doing with the satire. So
yeah,
I was in love with Mel Brooks. I was in love with this film. What about you? When did you first watch this movie?
I think you introduced this film to me. I don't remember watching it by myself or us renting it. I think you brought it over to the house, or I went over to your house and we watched it. And it was after I had seen him in Willy Wonka, so it really threw me for a loop. I'm gonna just be honest with you. I did not like this movie the first couple times I watched it. I think because it went over my head, it just did not appeal to me that much. And I really tried. I remember because we watched it quite a few times, and maybe the second or third time I started kind of laughing at it and thought it was kind of funny. It started to figure out, what he was doing. but this is definitely not for kids. It's definitely a mature film. It's not necessarily dirty or anything. It's just, kids won't get it at a certain age, and I certainly didn't, for a good while. And I was also messed up by Gene Wilder because I knew him as Willy Wonka, and he was a little bit different in this film. And I don't know, I just did not enjoy his performance until later on down the road. But yeah, definitely when we got to be teenagers and I watched it and, knew a little bit more, this movie just started getting funnier and funnier. And, there's a lot of interesting things about this film that I'm sure we'll get into as far as it being made and what it really influenced. There's actually, spoiler alert, there's a classic song that was influenced by this film. So if you don't know what it is, stay tuned and we'll tell you, because that's what we do here on the SuperCaZt. But
Mesdames et Messieurs, Damen und Herren, from what was once an inarticulate mass of lifeless tissues, may I now present a cultured, sophisticated man about town.
Man, it's just, there's not a bad performance in this film. Definitely Gene Wilder is the star and he carries this film. But I mean, you go down the road, even Peter Boyle as the monster. I was thinking to myself this last time watching it, could anybody else have been the monster and still been as good as Peter Boyle was in this film?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think so.
He's great, and that's one thing I want to get into this time. This film really made me have a greater appreciation for all these performances. But I guess we have to start with the man of the hour, the guy that, if it wasn't for him, this film would not be made. And you thought I was going to say Mel Brooks, but I'm really going to say Gene Wilder, because I think his fingerprints are all over this film, and that's what kind of makes this one different than other Mel Brooks films. Is Gene Wilder had a lot of say of how this project was going to go. He knew this character, how he was going to play it, and he and Mel sat down and they wrote this movie. And I think the writing's brilliant. I think his performance is brilliant. Frederick Frankenstein is just a great character.
No, I love him, and he is a guy that this, nobody could have played better than Gene Wilder in this role. I mean, he absolutely owns this role, this film. I mean, it is definitely, in my opinion, it's probably Gene Wilder's best performance. I'm just going to go ahead and say that. I mean, I love him as Willy Wonka. I loved him in, of course, The Producers, huge fan of. But I think this is my favorite Gene Wilder performance because of Gene and the way he portrays his character. Because he goes from being one way, and then he kind of goes off the deep end by the end of this film. And, spoiler alert, we're going to probably spoil the crap out of this film. So if you haven't seen it, go watch it. But he definitely is the reason this film, the reason this film is that great, because he commands your attention from the word go, pretty much.
I totally agree. And like you said, it's the writing, how the character changes and this dynamic he goes through. Because he starts off, he hates to be a Frankenstein. He's just like, no, it's pronounced Frankenstein. And just that opening scene of him having that lecture and the guy giving him a hard time, and even the experiment about the old man. And you learn just how terrible this guy is, too, in this scene.
Nervous system. But, sir, I am a scientist, not a philosopher. You have more chance of reanimating this scalpel than you have of mending a broken nervous system.
But what about your grandfather's work, sir?
My grandfather's work was doo-doo!
Yeah.
I love that. And Gene plays it so great because he can change emotions from this sort of sophisticated, I'm not going to say man about town, but a sophisticated professor character who seems like he's got it all together. He's definitely talks the talk, but then all of a sudden on a just a flip, he's losing it. He's going out of his mind, and that part of it is definitely amplified as the film goes on. And Gene pulls that off, but he doesn't go all the way to 10 or 11. He doesn't overact. In fact, I think what stood out to me most in this time watching it is how in certain scenes he kind of backs away and lets his co-stars, these brilliant comedians that are in the cast with him, he lets them shine and take a lot of the spotlight, which is, I think, showing you that he obviously is very secure with himself and he's very funny and he knows he wants to just make a great film, and I really respect that.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, a lot of people remember this film for Gene, and rightfully so, but if you watch the film from start to finish, you can look at really any of these supporting characters and go, man, they were really, really good. I mean, from Igor to from Luca, I mean, just all these guys really complement what I think Gene's trying to do. And that's the thing. Of course, if you don't know, Frankenstein is a timeless tale. It's been out for a while, and I don't know. You may can educate us on this, but I don't know how he got the idea to do the son or grandson, I guess, of Frankenstein. But that's just a brilliant thought, and or at least it sounds brilliant now. But I imagine it was probably a little bit of a gamble on Mel Brooks' part to take something so classic as the Frankenstein story and add to it, because usually that does not work out well.
Yeah, usually it comes off as some, like, especially nowadays, as some weird reboot or something.
Right.
But
right.
And yeah, I think they did get some pushback. Even though they had this great script, and I love it that the two guys kind of like clicked on this idea. They were like, "That's awesome. That's a great idea." And because both of them loved the Frankenstein originals, they were like, these cinematography in these films, the writing in these films, they're just, the feel of these films is great. And the fact that they could make something that kind of exists with that, but also be insanely funny, that's amazing.
Throw the third switch! Not the third switch! Throw it, I say! Throw it!
But yeah, like you said, it got some pushback. They couldn't get people to finance it, even though Mel Brooks was killing it with Blazing Saddles at the time. Mainly because they insisted on one thing, and we all know what that is, that it had to be in black and white, which 1970s is like crazy. Yeah. But I don't know about you, man. That was a great idea, and this film would not work if it was not in black and white.
I am Frau Blucher.
Growing up, if you watch things in black and white as a kid, I remember not liking stuff as much in black and white as I did in color. So I did like stuff that was in black and white, but it just wasn't as cool to me. You know, it seemed old, or it seemed ancient, or whatever. I remember specifically like that Lassie TV show was in black and white, and I just didn't enjoy it. I don't know what happened, but it's like, now that I'm an adult, I love black and white. I've told you I replayed LA Noire, which I just finished a couple days ago, and I didn't know you could put that whole game in black and white, and it just makes it a better game. That's the same thing with this film. I don't think this film is as good in color. I think it just adds to the the whole narrative of it, and of course the mood, it being sort of a scary. Now, this is not a scary movie. Let's not, they're just not trying to scare, but it's trying to give you the illusion of a scary, horror film. And I think putting it in black and white, it's brilliant, honestly, for this film.
Yeah, because I mean, like we said, they're in love with the Frankenstein films. They want to add to that a little bit. And it feels like it is in the universe. It feels like it's the same sets, or actually, I guess they did reuse some of the sets. And same time, I think the fact that it is playing it so well, as far as like it's trying to be believable, and it creates this world that feels like it's Frankenstein, and it has that. But I think that what makes it so funny is that it kind of sucks you into this. It makes you think this, and then something absurd will happen. Like the first bit, he stabs himself with a scalpel or something. It's just wonderful, and I
am not interested in death. The only thing that concerns me is the preservation of life. Class is dismissed.
It works on so many levels, but yeah, the black and white thing, the cinematography, which is my next point. This is Mel Brooks' best directed film. And I think it's because Gene Wilder, once again, he put his foot down. He says, Mel, you cannot be an actor in this film. You have to just concentrate on directing. And I think he's great.
Boy, did he.
I think he's great at that. I think he chose some of the best shots he ever did. He actually outdid the Frankenstein movies, I think. And at the same time, this cast, I don't know what he told them to make them just shine this much, because I know there's a lot of improv going on, and I know they're building off each other and making it work. But man, this man, he killed it. I think this whole everybody in this film associated with, they just kind of wanted to do something great and kind of sacrificed a little bit. It's kind of like a good team coming together. And what do you think about Mel's directing?
Look, I mean, there's shots, and you mentioned the shot at the beginning when he stabs his leg. There's a close-up where he says, class dismissed, or something dismissed, and he just sits there. And I just love that shot, because it's just, you can tell what he's thinking, even without saying anything. He is in immense pain, because he just stabbed himself, and yet he just plays it off so cool, and you're just like, that was brilliant. That's just it's a little thing, and it may go over a lot of people's heads, or people might forget, but that's the kind of stuff that I think Mel does so well in any of his films. He takes these chances, I guess you might say, and just goes for it. Just goes head over heels for it, and he's usually right in that. It was a gamble, I'm sure, to put this movie in black and white. I'm sure there was people that were like, nobody wants to watch a movie in black and white, especially a comedy movie. I mean, because you can't really imagine that working unless you're Mel Brooks, apparently, because he did it. And so everything Mel chose to do, from the music, oh my gosh, we haven't even got to the music yet, but that violin stuff is, man, it gets me every time.
Yeah, it's so much better made than it probably should be for a comedy. I mean, it's just a great film.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's almost cheapening this film to call it a comedy. Yes, it is funny. Yes, there are more jokes than anything, and but there's just so many things going right at the same time that you have to find. I rack my brain so hard to go, is there anything about this movie I don't like? Is there anything about this film that I would change or just ignore? And I'm like, no. I'm not calling this movie perfect, but I can't think of anything that makes me want to go, oh man, if they'd have just done this, it would be an all-time classic. It is an all-time classic, and I stand by that.
Yeah, and I think it's all these things just kind of coming together and working, because he nearly made a mistake. From everything I've heard, is from any of the director's commentaries and interviews, they weren't going to have them put it on the Ritz scene in there. And then Gene's like, no, it has to be in there. It's the best scene in the film. And I have to agree with that. To me, when I think of putting on the Ritz, which we'll go back into Peter Boyle here in a bit, like you said, but that scene, it's the best Mel Brooks scene. And I think if I was going to show anybody this film, and I just want to say, this is what this film's kind of about, the absurdity of it. Yeah. Here we go. This guy and his monster he created tap dancing together, singing some Fred Astaire song. It's awesome.
Dude, you have no idea how much I want to play. And it spawned a musical, by the way, guys. There is a musical of this movie. That's what makes how you know this movie's great. It spawned its own musical. And you have no idea how many times I've wanted to be in the show just to do that song, because I agree, that is my favorite scene, because I mean that's Gene Wilder at his best, and then there's Peter Boyle, and it's great. It's magic. And if you don't like that scene, I don't know what's wrong with it because it's brilliant.
If you're blue and you don't know where to go to, why don't you go where fashion sits? Different types who wear a day coat, pants with stripes, or cutaway coat, perfect fits.
Yeah, and I guess since we brought him up a few times, Peter Boyle, I think the thing that he does best is, I mean, because think about it, he's handicapped a little bit. All these other characters, they get to use dialogue. They used to get to these witty jokes. He's got to do it all with grunting and facial expressions and just the way he moves. And that's just brilliant. I think that's some of the best acting you can do if you can do it without even using words. And I think he's great.
But I think that's, again, a credit to Mel and the writers because, no, you don't have this monster talk. He doesn't just start talking, and communicating halfway through the film. He's got to be just like the original in that vein because that's what's going to work. And because as soon as the monster starts talking and everything, I think that's where it kind of loses its credibility as a film. That's just my opinion.
Luckily, it's the end of the movie.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's just the last bit of absurdity they're going to throw at you. Because if you think about it, he's like a little kid for most of the film. He's lost, he's scared, and I think Peter Boyle pulls that off. And still does it in a funny way.
That's funny because you just racked my brain because that is one thing that early on I didn't like about this film was the ending. Like when I started really liking this film, I don't know that I got that one guy lost the ability to talk and be sociable, and the other guy just went completely nuts. But now I get it. I'm like, okay, I get it. That's pretty good. That's pretty funny. And that's what you have to do with Mel Brooks films. If you've not sat down and watched Mel Brooks film, he is pretty much unlike any other director out there. Like, he will go for things that most people wouldn't even dream of. And like we said, with the putting on the Ritz thing, that had to be straight from his mind. Nobody else would have been like, oh, it'd be great if the monster and Frankenstein and the doctor did a song together. Like, who would think of that? So just so many things we could probably talk about this film all day.
I don't mean to embarrass you, but I'm a rather brilliant surgeon. Perhaps I could help you with that hump.
What hump?
Man, we got to talk about my favorite character, the guy that I just remember quoting him so much growing up. My father and I, we just go back and forth and say Igor quotes. Marty Feldman, the guy just looks funny when you just look at him, and just as soon as he shows up in the film, it changes. It was funny until that point, but then he comes in and he just kind of takes over the film and that's kind of what he does. Any scene he's in, he's got the ability to just steal it. And luckily they didn't just let him just take over the whole movie. They let him exist in this world. He breaks the fourth wall a few times. Yeah, you can tell that he's hamming it up at times, but at the same time, they know when to let him shine and kind of back away. And I don't know, he's just a great comedic actor in my opinion.
Yeah, and his chemistry with Gene Wilder is just really good. Like, they play off each other really well. And I was actually, just before we started recording, I had seen that scene where they talk about his name, and he's like, he said, I heard your name. But yeah, it's just brilliance on his part. And if not for Gene Wilder, I'd probably give the MVP of this film to Igor.
I'll never forget my old dad. When these things would happen to him, the things he'd say to me.
What did he say?
What the hell are you doing in the bathroom day and night? Why don't you get out of there? Give someone else a chance.
Yeah, Marty, he's great, and like I said, his absurdity, his crazy lines that he throws out there, they seem like he's in a different movie, but at the same time, he exists in this world. Something I didn't notice before is there's a scene where Gene Wilder's playing the violin and they're trying to get the monster to come back. If you pay attention in the background, Igor's just hanging back there reading sheet music.
Yes.
That he just comes in.
Yeah, he just
I'm like, that's hilarious. Who would think as an actor just to make it look like you're reading the sheet music? I mean, I don't know. I just think he makes a lot of great decisions that shows you yet again that really comedic actors probably are the best actors.
Now, we both said that there were things in this film that we didn't quite get as kids, or it took a while for us to really appreciate. And for me, one of those things was Cloris Leachman's character. I remember early on just not liking that character. And I'm not, I'm a little kid, so I'm just thinking she's just this crabby old woman. But she really holds her own comedically with Gene and Marty. I always knew that, but it's like when you watch it's just, she is definitely, I'm not going to call her the villain of the movie or anything, but she's definitely the antagonist, I think, a little bit to Frankenstein, at least at the beginning. And she's really funny. I did not remember her being as funny as she is. What are your thoughts on Miss Leachman's character?
Yeah, I'd like her. I'd like the Frau Blucher running joke every time they hear the name. The horses go crazy. But she never breaks character. She just stays this hardened, I don't know, German lady. And she does the accent very well. And she's funny. I like you saying. My scene that jumps to mind is the scene where she just keeps asking for different drinks if he wants that, and he's like, "No, I don't want it. I want to go to bed." And she keeps asking at different drinks like Ovaltine, and just how she said,
"Thank you."
Yeah, she's pretty irritating character a little bit, but that's part of the charm. That's part of the joke.
Me to find. Yes, so that I would. Yes, then you and Victor were. Yes, yes, say it. He was my boyfriend.
And there's a character that I want to talk about. Another female character. I don't know if you're a fan of her. Madeline Kahn as Elizabeth. The love interest for Gene for most of the film until she becomes the love interest for the monster. I heard you not a huge fan.
I may have to find another room to sleep in tonight because my wife's a huge Madeline Kahn fan, and I know she'll hear this later. But no, I don't hate her. I mean, she's Madeline Kahn. I'm not gonna say she was bad. I just did not care for her character. Maybe I know you're not necessarily supposed to anyway, but she just has that character's never clicked with me for as long as I've seen this film, and as many times as I've seen this film. I really try hard. I mean, she does say some funny stuff, and she is funny, but I just, for whatever reason, and I can't give you. And the thing that's frustrating is I can't tell you exactly why she doesn't click for me, and that's one of the frustrating things. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Maybe you can help me out here a little bit to understand a little more.
Yeah, I'm complete opposite. I think she's awesome.
Go for it.
I think she, just from her introduction, that first scene at the train station, just the way she's dressed. I mean, I know that part of that is costume design and all of that, and the way the character's written, but I think she does a lot with that character because she is obnoxious, and she is supposed to be this hoity-toity socialite, which definitely contrasts with when she goes to Transylvania, where she's away from that, but I think the way she delivers the lines, her subtleties in there, her facial expressions, I think she's very believable as this character, and I think she's very funny when she does it. I mean, just the mannerisms, and some people, when they would do that one scene where she says "woof," I think a lot of people, they couldn't pull that off the way she does. I think the delivery is just amazing, and I don't know, it's one of those. She's almost too much of a genius that it almost goes over your head, in my opinion. It's sort of like when you watch some actors, you don't really see what they're doing, but if you sit there and you really analyze what they're doing, you're like, oh, that's brilliant. And that's, I think, her as an actress.
Don't get me wrong, I love Madeline Kahn. I love her in Blazing Saddles. I think she's amazing in that film, and I think she is good in this film. I just don't like this role as much as I do some of her others. So that's what I'm gonna just say and leave it there.
Yeah, you better save yourself a little bit.
Yeah. But there is another character.
Yeah. There's one character I cannot defend.
Oh, really?
And I think she's serviceable, but
wow, we have the complete opposite. That's funny.
And it could be, I don't know if maybe it's because she's in on a starting lineup with all these amazing players or something. But Terry Garr as Inga, I think she's like the one performance that's not a 10 out of 10 for me.
Okay, I understand where you're coming from, but this is the way I look at it. All these comedic juggernauts are just tearing it up, the entire film. The way I think is it's sort of like when Jim Carrey had Jeff Daniels cast in Dumb and Dumber, because he did not want a comedian to try to outdo him, so he just had an actor. I think that's kind of the same thing here, where you have all these comedic actors that are doing a pretty good job of sharing, the load, as it were, for the comedic stuff. That they needed that extra character, but she didn't need to be the comedic powerhouse that these other guys were. That's how I see. That's at least where I think they were going with that character, because I think, no, she's not, extremely funny. But she's good looking. You need the good looking girl, and she's sort of almost like an extension of the audience, things through her eyes, because we don't know anything about bringing a dead body back to life, and so I think it's sort of that. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see your point, and I guess I'm being a little picky. I think she's good, and she's got her moments. I love that he would have an enormous Schwanzstücker scene. Try saying that and making that be believable when you say it and not cracking up.
Oh. Hello. Would you like to have a roll in the hay? It's fun. Roll in the hay.
And of course, put the candle back scene is just really funny, So I think she does have some comedic stuff. Is she not on the level of the rest of them? Sure. But I'm not going to penalize her for that. I think that was definitely on purpose as far as Gene Wilder and Mel Brooks' writing is concerned. So, there we go.
Yeah, and this movie has one of the best cameos ever. It's Oscar-winning actor Gene Hackman as the blind man. Just a throwaway character that's like one scene. But man, is he hilarious in this!
No kidding. Like, he's just great. His comedic timing in there too, because he's great with comedic stuff. So it's definitely a cameo worth remembering, and one I always look forward to, because I don't know, how can you not like Gene Hackman? I mean, come on.
Wait! Where are you going? I was going to make espresso.
Yeah, he's just amazing, and I think that's what makes this movie just really good. Is there's no like really wasted parts. I mean, even like the guys that you would kind of call extras, they're just in there just saying he's a monster. Those guys at the meetings and stuff like that, they're great, and I think Mel Brooks is good at finding these people that can pull off this kind of over the top acting that seems like it fits in a Frankenstein movie, but at the same time, the way they deliver it and the way the lines are said, I think it works as a Mel Brooks movie at the same time. So that's pretty cool, and I think that's another thing that makes this movie work. And we've talked a lot about the comedy and some of the great scenes, But to you, how does this work as a Frankenstein movie, you think?
Well, I think, like I said earlier, I think it works because they pay homage and respect to the original film. I think really well. In fact, I didn't know for years, but when he first goes into the laboratory and you hear the original Frankenstein doctor talking, I didn't know that was actually Mel Brooks. I thought they just got audio from the '30s movie and just put it in there. I had no idea that Mel Brooks actually did those lines. So I think it is definitely a love letter to the original film. And it doesn't step on it, it doesn't belittle it, and it certainly doesn't take away from its classic, stance as far as getting the genre of horror on its feet. So yeah, I think it works really, really well because while it's not scary, it's just really entertaining, and it's a film that I don't care. And like we said, we've seen this movie 50 times. We'll probably see it a billion more times before it's all said and done. And every time, it just it hooks me. It just gets me right there from class dismissed line. I'm sold. So I'm not the biggest horror fan, so I'm not really an authority on that sort of thing. You are a bit more than me, so I'll throw it to you, man. How do you feel about this film being in the quote-unquote Frankenstein universe?
I think it's part of what you said because they are so faithful to the original and they pay a lot of respect to it. I think that's part of it, but I think it's like we've been saying, this is great directing by Mel Brooks. It immerses you in this world that feels real and lived in my opinion. I feel like this is not like with a lot of Mel Brooks films where it feels like, oh, this is like, let's say Blazing Saddles, for instance, it's hilarious, but it's all very meta, It's like at one point he rides out into like Hollywood. He rides out into a movie theater on a horse. This film, though, on the other hand, it feels like it's breathed in. It feels like it's a different world than what we live in, and I love it. I think it's great because it's that you're there, you're in this world where everything seems very believable, but it's very, very funny. I really can't put my finger on it, but it's very magical in a way. And like you're saying, it's immersive. It pulls you into it. Like that graveyard scene, it feels like something straight out of the classic films. But I guess a big part of that is the music. John Norris, great score.
Yeah, and I think that definitely complements what the film is supposed to be because it has the violin, and that's obviously it sounds like it could come from the 30s or 40s, whatever. The way that music is added to it. You gotta think we're used to Mel Brooks films being parodies like Blazing Saddles,
Robin Hood Men in Tights, Spaceballs.
Robin Hood Men in Tights, Spaceballs. But if you go back to this film, people weren't doing parodies like this. So as we said earlier, I think this was a huge gamble for Mel Brooks' part because he wasn't necessarily Mel Brooks at this point just yet anyway. So he's trying to, prove himself. And I think he takes great care for every single part of this film, whether it's the casting, the way the film is shot and directed, and of course the music. So I think, it's just a brilliant film. Is it the funniest film ever? Probably not, but it's still, one of the best. And so it's something like I said, will probably watch 1,000 more times and still just love.
Yeah, and it's just lightning in a bottle. It's all these things lining up, all these people, all these great performances, and they're all at the top of their game. They're not slouching. They're not taking the level of the stuff down. I can definitely tell when I watch this film and when I hear anything about it from behind the scenes that they were all in on this. They wanted to make this one of the best movies ever. And that's so cool when everybody on set, everybody from the lighting to every actor in it to the biggest actor in it, they're all on board and they all want to just give it their all. And that's just awesome. I love it. It's why I love movies.
I agree with you. I mean, it's absurd, it's silly, it's really really funny, but I think there's a magic to this film that only Mel Brooks could have really, you know, let loose because of everything we've been talking about. And so, if you haven't done yourself the service of watching this film, you don't have to be a horror fan to enjoy this film. There's, it's in the backdrop of a horror film, but it's like I said earlier, it's not a scary film. It's not. There's not going to be a lot of spooks and jumping out and stuff like that. This is a straight up comedy, but it just, as I said earlier, it just goes above and beyond that, in my opinion. And so, if you haven't watched this film, or it's been a while since you've seen this film, please do yourself a favor. We're almost to spooky season anyway, so do yourself a favor, get a big bowl of popcorn, and let us know what you guys think of this film, because it is one of our favorites, and hopefully we've proven that over the last half hour.
Young Frankenstein!
Mystery of life, at last I found you.
On the next episode of the SuperCaZt.
Do you really want to go and live in that hotel for the winter?
Sure I do. It'll be lots of fun.
The only thing that can get a bit trying up here during the winter is the tremendous sense of isolation.
Is there something bad here?
I fear you will have to deal with this matter in the harshest possible way.
I do that I killed you and Danny.
You did this to me, didn't you?
I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains.
Yeah, and speaking of the spooky season, we got some Halloween, some horror films lined up, so stay tuned. You haven't already, please subscribe and hit the bell like you said. The notification is wonderful. And please comment, guys. It helps the videos so much, and we just like hearing from you. Just the other day, somebody was sharing something on our police story video, stuff that I hadn't heard about in research, and it just enhanced my taste for that film, and that's just great. So please stay tuned for that, guys.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us here on the SuperCaZt. For SteveZ, I am the SuperFosh. We'll see you guys next time on the SuperCaZt.